welcome watchers and readers. I apologize about the lack of uploads and new content because a few things. One, moving, and I think that's a universal truth that it sucks. Moving sucks. Anybody out there who likes moving, please let me know. I don't think that's the case. And the second thing is that I got a new camera. So there's some good and bad here. I've got a really high-end camera that I'm using right now. But unfortunately, there's a lot of things that I needed to iron out and still need to iron out. But that's not what you guys came here for. We are back to the grind. As a reminder, I am the watcher, Daryl's the reader, and he will spice up the segments with some book sauce, but limited spoilers.
Hey man, welcome back. I'm glad we're back at it. Been waiting for episode 3 for a minute here. But as a recap, we got done last with episode 2. Strangers and Friends, and that was a unique one. We got to see a lot of Seline and Rand becoming closer. Definitely we're strangers at some point. We've got Lan and Moraine, technically our friends, but acting like strangers. That was an interesting dynamic there. I think a lot of the players, that's how they did it. But as we're getting into what might be, it seems like a lot of chess pieces are being moved around. Ishmael is masterfully making moves. Liandrin making decisions and moves and guiding people in different directions. We're going to see a lot of that today. Let's get into this episode.
He's Daryl, the reader.
He's Mooks, the watcher.
Team Watchers. No expectation, zero disappointments.
Team Reader, we love the books, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm here for the show. Let's go.
All right, so this opening with Nynaeve going into the tested for accepted, it's probably one of my favorite scenes, and so far my favorite episode of the entire 2 seasons. So this one definitely is very true to how things look as they're going for tested. This is a pretty interesting scene.
Yeah, this was intense. The first 2 gates are an easy decision for me, but the last one was impressive. And the impressive part is it had a bit of Inception element in it, and I loved it. Where is that top? Is it still spinning? The gates. I wonder if we will get to see more action inside the arches. Maybe there are gates outside the castle. And I wonder about the ones that failed the gate and are wandering the world. Do we get to hear their stories and breaking points? I'm interested to see if this gets played out. That'd be really cool. The gates are like coming of age ritual for the weavers, and they are made before the breaking, so I'm not quite certain what that means. I find it interesting when Nynaeve was told, if you're doing this for someone else, you will fail. As if this was a test of how selfish you can be, and one person pops in my head, Liandrin. And another point of interest was when Nynaeve was asked if that was real, if this was real, and the answer she got was, no one knows. So, are we talking about parallel universes? Man, this could be a crazy ride because I know there's so much more. How many books are there again?
Well, technically 14, call it 14 and a half and 15 on the way. There's another book that someone's writing. So yeah, just call it 14 of the main series there.
Yeah, so yeah. I can only imagine if there's a parallel universe, what those 15 books and yet to see ahead of us. This could be a crazy ride. And the lady from the first gate, she had a pent-up rage and disapproval for her leaving the village for the tower. This rang Nynaeve's bell a bit. I could tell it cut her deep. And there's another peek into Nynaeve's core. The thing that matters to her most, it's her people, her loved ones. She is the protector. I noticed that a lot, especially the first gate and the second gate. And during the first gate, I also found out very interesting was she cared more about someone's final moments than their state of happiness at the expense of the truth when asked about Rand if he's still alive. Very empathetic. And the third gate was my favorite. She appears to come out of the gate with bloodstains and was told it was not yours, with Lan's headpiece, and this almost broke her, almost. She told the Aes Sedais, I'm not your sisters. Keep your ring, and left the tower. Then Egwene shows up to stop her from leaving and fails. Nynaeve reminds her friend, you don't need my protection. And to be an Aes Sedai, the meaning, servant of all. This just shows she doesn't want to serve all and wants to care for the ones she loves. Yeah.
I 100% agree with you about some of the aspects of those scenes. And ironically enough, they're very close to what happened to Nynaeve in the actual book. So that woman who you mentioned was a little upset with her was Nani Cothan, which is Matt's mother. So that
Really?
yeah. So the difference there with the book versus the show was it was another wisdom who was new to the town, and she was like poisoning people instead of actually helping them. And Nynaeve was obviously conflicted, like I got to stop this lady. So she had to
Yeah.
deal with it. So slightly different, a little twist. And then that scene with Tam, which was Rand's dad, asking
Okay.
if he was still alive, she obviously felt like, oh my God, in her mind, Rand's dead. So you're right.
Yeah.
Compassion was there. Let this man go in peace, thinking his son was still good. So yeah, it was very good. Now that interesting scene where you said Inception, it was kind of
Yes.
it was kind of funny because that one was slightly different. That was a little bit of a twist. It was definitely good cinematography. It was good video. It was interesting play on TV. A little bit of a twist from the books, but I like what they were trying to do there. And then the third scene, how it played out, what necessarily happened during that scene, and how it all happened, I loved it. I'll be honest with you. It was probably this whole episode could have been straight Nynaeve, and they wouldn't have had to do anything else. So they nailed it with the accepted test. I mean, it was a 20-minute intro, for God's sakes. So I mean, in an hour-long episode, you get 20 minutes of an intro of her going through this testing, and the way it ended. Oh boy.
Before you end this segment, what is for the breaking? I didn't get that piece.
Okay, so yeah, so before the breaking of the world, so the Dragon Reborn, the old one, Louis Telemon, previous dragon, I guess, when he was going to do what he needed to do to stop the Dark One, that caused a couple things. It caused you gotta remember this story is unique because we're in kind of a post-apocalyptic world right now. The world that 3,000 years ago that Lewis, the old dragon, lived in was very advanced. I mean, like flying cars, like the whole
I
nine
remember
yards.
that scene. Yes.
So they have a different. That's why you see Ishmael dressed very like almost like late 90s Miami Vice style clothes. Like it was just you got to figure that this book was written in the 90s, right? So that was the kind of a play on futuristic fashion from then even. So you'll find elements in the story, and if they really go down that rabbit hole, that you'll see ties to today and our world, what we see played off in this book. It was a very, very well written story and crafted in like a puzzle they had to put together. So the breaking was an event that happened when Louis the dragon sealed the boar, right? In doing so, he also tainted the male half of the source. That's why all the men, when they channel, they have those black lines and flecks of just darkness in their channel. Everybody but Ishmael, if you noticed, and we'll get into why later. But that falls on lines with spoilers. So beyond that, that's what the breaking was about. So this scene here is when they rounded all the people up with a small town, and you've got Ishmael standing next to Lady Suroth and her voice. The girl with the mask on her face, kind of completely covered, is Lady Suroth. The one standing next to her is the voice, and they're addressing the people and making them bow. And you could see that the Shenarans were not having it, especially Uno, and what happened to him was just terrible.
Our ginormous buddy, Loyal, the Ogier, says he has never heard nor read of these people, so it's a bit shocking to hear from a big bookworm, right? This maybe shows us they are an elusive group or something, right? So it's a big enigma to him and obviously to me too, but we get to see those silent but deadly Binky girls again going around, not weaving power in this scene, but just scouting the village, and they were pointing fingers at people and they got escorted out quickly, right? So they were looking for somebody or something, and they were definitely part of that scout team. To the guy that man, the action piece was unfortunately a death of, you know, I wish he had maybe at least a few more seasons in him, but the one-eyed dude, I was just getting to like him, and his time came to an end. But he didn't go down without a fight. This was really cool. He stayed true to himself and spit and resist. He sure did that to the very end. That was awesome. I noticed Perrin at the end almost snapped and went berserk. I felt that rage, like he was about to bust open and nothing stopping him. But he was wisely reminded it's not worth fighting. And Perrin was getting a good look at Ishmael. Doesn't want to forget who to kill. That's what I'm thinking that moment.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree about a lot of those points, but honestly, he was. I think his focus and Perrin's focus was on the one who ordered the death of Uno. Ishmael being there, Perrin at this point of the game doesn't know who Ishmael is with that face. You remember when he saw him, it was always in the dream, the burnt face with the glowing eyes, and coming to him as a nightmare. Perrin doesn't know who this dude is yet. He's just a guy. He's up on the dais, or the the walking throne, as it were, with Lady Suroth. So yeah, he's got a lot of rage and hate in him.
Yeah.
What I want to point out too is Elias. Remember when they got to the village, the other wolf brother was like, "Yeah, I don't really like this scene. I'm going to stay outside." He escaped all this trouble, so maybe parents should follow suit with Elias next time. But this one hit me a little bit because Uno was probably one of my favorite side characters. He was definitely entertaining, and the bad thing is, I mean, we're in season 2, right? And we got to see him a little bit in season 1, starting to grow on his character, seeing his spirit, his fight, and for him to go out like this was kind of interesting. A little bit about, you call them the Binky Girls. So
Yeah.
I think they've been named already in the story a little bit, but they're called Damane. And they're women who can channel the one power, but they're the leashed ones, right? So they're actually controlled by Suldams, who are also, well, just say they're the women who handle them, right? What they were looking for is women who can channel the one power, can sense other women who can channel the one power. So they were finding young girls and women to pretty much cage up and leash. Even if they have a little bit of spark in them, these people, the Seanchan, who, that Loyal never heard of, they enslave women who can channel the one power and use them as tools. All right, so then we move into probably one of my favorite interactions of this story so far between Logain and Ran. I really liked the way this worked out. It seemed like, he made an initiative to get a job where this man worked, put himself in a situation surrounded by crazy people, essentially, and just to get close to Logain. And if this was all Rand's doing, this is a very, very cool play early on for him, I think, because I don't think he's there yet. You know what I mean? I this was crafty, but if this is how they're going to show it, I love it. The two of them together on screen this early is really interesting to see. I was happy to see that.
Yeah, my man Rand gets to meet the Black Knight, and the reason why I say that is a little bit of a chess element here, and he made some chess moves to get there. It was like an en passant into the room. Bravo. This Logain acting is top notch to me. And let's be real, I have a low bar, so it doesn't mean much, but I love this guy though. I really do. It's just the way his eyes and his angle of his eyes looking at you, like as if it's down, you know what I mean? It was those small things that made it was impressive to me.
Mm-hmm.
Again, low bar, okay, but I liked it. And Logain made Rand run miles, right? Ran and run miles in circles to get the special wine before he answers his question. I guess it was maybe a test how serious he wants it, right? And I was like, all right, I'll go do it. And like, no questions asked. Like, I'll figure it out somehow. And the the best and shitty part about it was that he poured it all on the ground. Like, Well, eventually, Logain was making a point about overflowing and unstoppable urges, right? And then he ended up just tossing that at the very end. So I was like, "What the fuck, dude? You just made him run and get this bottle for you, and then now you just threw it against the wall, right?" So Logain rants about how the system is rigged and the world is poisoned and mad and out to like castrate men. I don't know, but then Rand cuts him off with a reminder, "You're not the dragon." But I wonder still though if Logain has I think he has a valid point. He is he mad or is the world mad? I see a sliver of perspective logic for Logain's frustration. Is Logain evil only because they made him evil, or is he the monster? So, in a way, I like this because there's so much more books ahead of us, so much more road. I can only imagine if that's the twist and turn of the story, right? So, it's one of those things that he's got power he wants to weave, but the whole world is saying, no, you're evil. So, maybe they made the monster themselves. I don't know. That's just a question I had.
So I'm going to give you a something I think is fair to give because in the story they completely went over his lack of having a trial. So he was never brought before the Amerlin. He's so strong during that fight when his soldiers, his Gildanan army came to save him. They had to release the hold a little bit, so it was like only two of them trying to hold him. He broke free, he's just doing what he does. You caged me up, dude. I was just out here. As far as I felt in Logain, he was the dragon, right? So he's just doing his thing. Yeah. They caged him up, so he, really, it's almost self-defense. But Liandrin made the choice to still him right then and there, or gentle him right then and there. So that cut him off from the source. And if you recall, the Amerlin was not happy. She was like, the dragon's supposed to be, if he was a dragon, he should have been brought before me for me to judge. And that's for the tower to judge. So I don't necessarily say the world thought he was evil because obviously people flocked to him. All of Gildan, he was a minor lord of Gildan and got the king and his army to follow him. So I would say two things. I don't believe he's inherently evil. His actions may be perceived evil by women who can channel because they think all men are, the Antichrist, unless you are the dragon, and even then, they got to they want to lock you down. The second part about it is he is mad. He's a little crazy. But he's not. He at least the book version of him is not evil, and honestly, the TV show portrayal of him was lovely. He's not an evil guy. He's well thought out. Well, he's just, he's a little crazy, but,
but them voices.
Yeah. He's definitely hearing voices, but he, he wasn't, you got to remember, like, when he, had the option to kill that king, instead he healed him and the voices were saying, take him out. You know what I mean? So he's controlled mad. He's controlling his madness. So, honestly, I would put Logain, even now, early, as a good guy. We get to Matt, being locked up in a cage. And again, I think this is a pretty interesting, way to get Matt back into the story after the last season's debacle. So you got Matt in a cage and Liandrin and him having conversations. There's parts here where I feel like, it was interesting to see him and Min together, having those conversations and where they go and what's going on with Min and Liandrin. That's always a good question mark. But this particular capture of Matt, I believe the actor playing Matt this time around is really capturing the essence of who Matt is. Kind of a scoundrel, but a really good, a good heart. So yeah, this is his reflection in that cage of his,
Yeah. Matt, I find it funny because Matt wakes up again to his landlord, Liandrin, hovering over him. So it's almost like what just happened here, though. Like Liandrin thinks Nynaeve is gone, and now she lets Matt go.
Right.
Liandrin held Matt as a strategic piece somehow, or does Liandrin care for Egwene with the loss of her friend, and maybe hopes freeing Matt can help her grieve? I don't know. Liandrin's such a dagger twister. It's not just stabbing, but it's that twisting is her style, man. She reminds Matt. Moraine spoke of him as someone important, but quickly destroys that feeling and crushes him into breaking down by saying he's insignificant and he does not matter to anyone and costed too many lives. Man, poor Matt, man. Like he's just struggling in that room. Like there was a moment where Team Matt could have gone on the right path here. Matt had a chance to say hi to Gawain. He took a big breath as if he was ready to face this with like lots of explaining, confronting the truths, but he cowards and walks away. They had a chance there. Team Matt had a chance, but he walked away. And the one time I see a smile on the Matt's face, likely the only opportunity of happiness, happens when he sees Min with the stolen horses ready to ride off somewhere together. And from his perspective, with someone who cares about him, right? The one person that cares about him. Only to find out Liandrin is involved with Min. Gosh. They're playing Matt for some reason. There's a telling moment in Min's motive, though, when Liandrin said, if they succeed on this goal mission, Moraine will not have anything over us anymore. I hope for Matt's sake, Min can save herself and Matt somehow. Yeah, I feel like Min definitely has outstanding debts. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, Leandrin's, part of the benefactor of those debts. Anyways,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I have to preference this with these particular scenes were not part of the book. However, the careful way that the showrunners put it together in such a way that they put Matt and Min in a situation where Min seems to be being manipulated. I there's too much that I could say about Min that I won't. But this is interesting. This is a different side of Min. It gives her more layers. I feel it definitely shows. You know, like for instance, like the barmaid. If you remember from early on in season one, you got to meet her. You got to see what hooks and what they had in her and how they twisted her. I think they're trying to show the manipulation that Liandrin is so good at on Min, and I'm looking forward to see where that goes. And with Matt making the decision, when he was in front of Egwene,
yeah,
I feel like Liandrin manipulated him in such a way that internally she you think about it, she's hundreds of years old or 100 years old, and she knows things, so she definitely was playing mind games with him, and it worked, and in that exchange with Min and Liandrin, Liandrin, I knew he would do this, right? So she was betting, and I love that. So she rolled the dice, and Matt did what she wanted. And remember that statement, right? Later,
okay,
rolling the dice especially when it comes to Matt. But so it was a good twist, and I think it's just we're moving people where they need to be to fall in line with the way the story should, and I'm okay with this as long as we continue to get people back on track. Oh yeah. So now, and this is a little callback to, Ishmael being there watching over Perrin, and Perrin just kind of being angry. He's, all his people are captured. Perrin's in a stagecoach by himself, and with Ishmael, he wakes up to see him, and he's like, huh, who are you? Because he didn't know who he is. And then he says, you know me. You know what I mean? And he goes through it, and he comes to that realization. Oh, but Rand killed you, and he's like, oh, is that what Moraine told you? He is such a slick villain. Ishmael is probably, ironically, he's of the Forsaken, he is in my top three, and it's he has a great story, and the way that he gets so close and personal, though, up in your face, kind of, he's just like a you ever like a calm villain. You know what I mean? It's just so interesting to see him. He doesn't have the rage or the madness that one might think he should have.
Yeah, the scene was somewhat short, but I find it still funny. There's a piece of humor in this where Matt wakes up to his landlord. Perrin wakes up to his nightmare. Like
Right,
these
right.
people are just waking up to things that they don't want to see or hear. But I found confusing though. I know you explained a little bit at the time. I found confusing. I didn't think they have met before, but Perrin states that Rand should have killed you before. But you know, I was a bit confused, but it makes sense now. And when Elias shows up with meat juice all over his face, man, this guy loves his raw meat.
Yeah.
But at least use a napkin next time, brother.
Right. Yeah, and this time is I think is meat of choice with Seanchan. So
Yeah, he was getting a buffet.
and it's kind of funny because you know the episode title, what might be, right? So there's all those things, especially when it came to Nynaeve and the like Ishmael saying to Perrin, the more wolf you are, the better for me. And Liandrin, pushing Matt in a certain way and Min in a certain way. Like, I feel like they're all trying to turn them to the dark side, right? At least those two. And Nynaeve just being taken off the plate, like out of the, like, just they just took her pawn piece and just moved her on. Like all these things that they're trying to do. I like the way that this is visually showing, and ultimately it's still telling the same story that I'm used to, just differently. We're gonna get back to see Ran and Seline, because who doesn't love a good Ran and Seline scene? So the two of them just getting cozy, and she's doing favors for him, got him all dressed in a fancy coat. The coat, though, I will have to say, this is slightly spoilery, but that coat is iconic. And I'll just say that and nothing else. But the conversation that they're having when Seline leaves him, and somebody hands him a note, that invitation, right? And then a lady comes over to him, and kind of inquires a little bit about him in a shy kind of way, and he makes the choice to throw that in the garbage can. He doesn't even know how well he's playing a game, but it's called W.A.R, which is the game of houses, and he is playing it so smooth. Accidentally, it was brilliant.
This was the piece that where Rand needed to go to get that special wine, and they were all dressed up. That suit was probably the best suit on display so far, definitely by far. And the only thing I remember that reminded where this can go is that there's always chess players among the peons, or the people that playing checkers. And the chess players are these politicians, knowing that sometimes, you got to keep people happy, but it's all part of the puppet master's work. Yeah, I just know that when he finished that scene, he took off and ran. So it makes sense. You wouldn't want the ward anywhere near an aristocratic gathering like that. So I felt like he ran from one part of the city to the other side. You know what I mean?
He did, literally. Yeah, I mean, out of the riches into the slums to get back to where Logain was. And that's when he has the iconic pouring the wine scene out, which is still an interesting scene together, to see them together. It's great. We've got Elaine and Egwene, like, after Egwene exhausted efforts trying to open the arches, and Elaine just schooling her, like, look, it's not going to work. You're wasting your time, but she did it in such a way, again, and I'm gonna mention something you said earlier. She's has the makings of a great leader, because she's matter of fact, yet she still cares. You know what I mean? She's not trying to be above her. She's just trying to be like on the same level with her and be like, look, you're wasting your efforts. But then, out of nowhere, Nynaeve comes back on her own willpower, bro. Like, what's up? I'm here for it.
Yeah, that was that last scene was also another great acting moment. I don't know, between Logain and Nynaeve's last moment there, I still like a little bit of Logain's side. It had a little bit of evilish eye, but Nynaeve busted through, and she, like, you could tell she was scarred. It was going to be a scar that she's going to remember for quite some time, even though it was just part of the arches, right? So, yeah, so we get to see another opportunity Elaine in action. Her EQ, emotional intelligence, pulling through, talks about what Nynaeve would have want for her, right? Talking to Gawain. And Elaine is a beacon of light at the dark hours. Man, her stock doubling again for me, and what I think her worth and value to maybe the future of what could happen here. I mean, yes, she's definitely a possible great leader in the making. So at first, I was turned off by her. She was a little pompous, but I think it was just maybe what we thought, or what I thought right away of her, because she had a lot of privileges growing up.
Yeah.
But she doesn't wear that on her shoulders, right? It's just everybody else knows it, you know?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah,
Nynaeve comes out of the gate, though, the portal. That third portal finally comes out, right? It's not one of those Inception moments. She's out with blood stains on her. In the parallel universe, in the gates and the arches, that was her daughter's blood. Yikes.
Yeah, that was hurtful. There's so much. I mean, I could really go on and on about the whole thing with Nynaeve, and then some of it border spoilers. But let me just say this: the scenes while she was in the arches, each one of those scenes is very much a setup for future things. And I'm not going to necessarily say what they are, but I guess I just want you to kind of remember those scenes, and maybe we'll go back to it later if they follow the story the way they should. Things that happen in those scenes are just very, like, goddamn, they were good. They were good.
Watch the flush of the frame, nerf near that slope with value. Heard your music.
Snip opposite oris, the she steps at one. Search now me.
Here's how with Squimsy.
Hurdy rough oris.